He sent the Pope a painting of his own severed head. A boy stands in the dark, holding a sword in one hand and a man's dripping head in the other. The head is not Goliath, it is the painter. Bloated, middle-aged, eyes half open, still seeing. Caravaggio looked at himself and painted what he believed he deserved. That canvas arrived in Rome 4 years after he killed a man in the street and ran. But I am getting ahead of myself. In the summer of 1606, the most famous painter in Rome vanished. Not because he was forgotten, because he was sentenced to death. No trial, no jury. If they found him, anyone could kill him and collect the reward. The charge was murder. The victim was a man named Ranuccio Tomassoni. And the killer? He painted saints. Rome had seen death before. Duels, revenge, street justice. By morning, most of them were gossip, then dust. This one was different, because the man who walked away from that body was not a soldier, not a criminal. He was the same hand that painted the calling of St. Matthew, the same eye that taught light how to cut through darkness. His name was Michelangelo Merisi. The world would remember him as Caravaggio. And before he painted his own execution, he had to become someone worth executing. Before Rome knew his name, Caravaggio was doing something no artist had dared to do. Something that almost got him killed before the murder ever happened. He arrived in 1592, young, broke, and furious, a city of churches and power where art belonged to families with names. Caravaggio had no name, no patron, no ceiling waiting for his brush. What he had was a way of seeing that nobody had asked for. He found work where he could. In one cramped workshop, his job was to paint fruit. Not God, not glory, just grapes, leaves, and the slow rot underneath. Look at basket of fruit. The apple has a bruise you can almost smell. The pear bears the mark of rot. The figs are splitting open, their seeds exposed. The grape leaves curl and brown at the edges. Other painters corrected nature. Caravaggio betrayed it. He showed the decay because the decay was true. He found his models in places respectable artists ignored. Taverns, alleyways, brothels. He painted a fortune teller stealing a ring while she smiled. He painted card sharps dealing from the bottom of the deck. He did not paint heroes. He painted people who looked like they had already lived, before the frame caught them. Then something shifted. A cardinal named Francesco Maria del Monte took notice. Del Monte was not like the others. He collected telescopes. He hosted Galileo in his palace. He believed that seeing clearly, really seeing, was a form of power. And he saw something in Caravaggio that the churches had missed. Del Monte gave him a room in the Palazzo Madama, clothes, protection, and a sword. Money bought better rooms, better wine, a blade at his hip, and something else, attention. In a city where attention was currency, Caravaggio was becoming rich and reckless. Court records mention insults, assaults, a window shattered over a debt. He carried steel like other men carried shadows. But not everyone was impressed. Another painter named Giovanni Baglione was watching. Baglione was established, respected. Everything Caravaggio was not. And he hated him. In 1603, Baglione sued Caravaggio for slander. The charge? Caravaggio had been circulating drawings that mocked Baglione's work, calling it garbage. In court, Caravaggio refused to apologize. He spent 2 weeks in prison for it. 2 weeks. For pride. In Rome, that was the only sin that could not be forgiven. And somewhere in that same city, a woman named Philide Melandroni was moving through rooms that connected power, art, and desire. She was Sienese, fierce, a courtesan who became Caravaggio's most painted face, St. Catherine, Judith, the Magdalene. She was also, according to some accounts, the reason a man would soon die. Here's where it gets unsettling. The same hands that painted saints were about to do something unforgivable. But first, you need to understand what made his paintings so dangerous. Every great artist finds something that belongs only to them. Leonardo found mystery. Michelangelo found the body. Caravaggio found light. Not the soft, golden light that filled Renaissance chapels like warm honey. Caravaggio wanted light that interrupted, light that arrived uninvited and exposed whatever it touched. A single beam cutting through blackness like a blade. Look at the calling of St. Matthew. Jesus is not in the center. There are no clouds, no halos, no symmetry. Most people do not even see him at first. Your eyes go to the money on the table, the tax collector counting coins. Then, slowly, the light pulls you back. A hand, a gesture. That is Christ. Caravaggio understood something that filmmakers would spend centuries trying to replicate. Control the light and you control the eye. Control the eye and you control what the heart feels before the mind catches up. They call it chiaroscuro, light and shadow. Simple words for a revolution. But light was not the only thing entering his paintings. Violence was too. His saints bled. His martyrs looked afraid. In Judith Beheading Holofernes, the heroine does not look heroic. She looks like a woman doing terrible work. Her hands grip the sword wrong. Her face wrinkles with effort. The blood sprays in an arc so real you want to wipe it from the canvas. For the first time, sacred stories felt like they were happening to people you knew. People who bled warm. People who begged. The more real his paintings became, the more violent his life became. And soon, the violence would no longer stay on the canvas. May 28, 1606. Via di Palacorda. The day everything changed. But here's the part historians are still arguing about. It began as a game. Palacorda, what Romans called real tennis, on a covered court near the Palazzo Firenze, Cardinal del Monte's palace. A 10 scudi bet. Then something was said. We will never know exactly what. Gambling debts, an old insult, or perhaps Philide Melandroni, who had been linked to both men. In Rome, wounded pride was sharper than any sword. What happened next was not a street brawl. It was a duel. Not the noble kind with seconds and ceremony, the kind that happened in shadows, where 4 men stood on each side and steel decided everything. Caravaggio brought his sword. Tomassoni brought his. Tomassoni had his people with him. So did Caravaggio, including Onorio Longhi, the architect who had been his friend. It was short, loud, chaotic. On a tennis court, there is nowhere to run. Caravaggio did not stab him in the chest. He aimed lower. The femoral artery near the groin. In the honor culture of Rome, this was not an accident. It was a message, the kind of wound a man inflicts when a woman is involved. Tomassoni fell. His blood pooled on the court. The wound was catastrophic. Within hours, he would be dead. The court went silent. Caravaggio was wounded too, a gash on his head. He did not run, not yet. His men dragged him through a side door, into the Palazzo Firenze next door, where Cardinal del Monte had once given him a room. He hid there while the city woke up to a corpse. By morning, Rome had already decided his fate. Death, immediate, public. The same churches that had hung his paintings now wanted his head. The same nobles who had paid for his art now paid for his capture. He fled the next day, disappeared into the alleys he had painted, into the darkness he had spent his life studying. And somewhere in that darkness, he began to understand that his greatest paintings had not been painted yet. Most people think Caravaggio's story ends with the murder. It doesn't. The 4 years after the murder produced his greatest works, and his most terrifying confession. Most fugitives hide. Caravaggio painted. Naples first, then Malta, then Sicily. 4 years of running. 4 years of looking over his shoulder. In Malta, something extraordinary happened. The Grand Master of the Knights of Malta, Alof de Vignacourt, welcomed him. Not as a fugitive, as an artist. Caravaggio painted his portrait, and in return, the Grand Master made him a knight, a cavaliere of the order, the only thing Rome could not touch. He was given the most important commission of his life, an altarpiece for the co-cathedral of St. John, the beheading of St. John the Baptist. Look at it. The executioner reaches for his knife while John is still alive. A woman turns away. An old woman watches. No one is heroic. Everyone is complicit. And then Caravaggio did something he had never done before. He signed his name. Not in paint, in the blood of the Baptist, pooling on the stone floor. Fra Michelangelo. It is the only painting he ever signed. He wrote his name in another man's blood. But the piece did not last. In Malta, he fought again, this time with a fellow knight. The details are murky. Another insult, another blade, another moment of rage. He was thrown into a cell at Fort St. Angelo, stripped of his knighthood, declared a putrid and corrupted member of the order. So he escaped, rope from a window, into the harbour, into the dark. He fled to Sicily, then back to Naples, and there, in 1609, the past caught up with him in a different way. 5 men attacked him outside a tavern. They cut his face, deeply. The wounds were so severe that he was left disfigured. Some say it was revenge for Tomassoni, others say a debt unpaid. Caravaggio never named them. After that, he painted Salome with the head of John the Baptist. The head on the platter is not John, it is Caravaggio, younger, unwounded, already dead in his own imagination. He was no longer painting for fame, he was painting for time. Every commission bought him another week, another month, another chance to survive. Then came David with the head of Goliath. David is young, almost too young to hold the weight of what he has done. And the head he carries? Look closely. The face is not a giant's, it is Caravaggio's own. Bloated, defeated, the face of the man who had been cut in Naples, the face of the man who had run for 4 years. He sent this to the Pope. A man condemned for murder sent the Vatican a self-portrait as a severed head. No letter could have confessed more. No apology could have bled so honestly. Friends were working on a pardon. For the first time in years, Rome didn't seem impossible. He only had to survive a little longer. He survived. He survived the streets. He survived Malta. He survived Sicily. He was 38 years old, days away from a pardon, carrying 3 paintings that would have made him a legend. And then he vanished. He gathered his paintings, left Naples, sailed north. The journey should have ended in Rome. Instead, it became one of art history's greatest mysteries. Somewhere along the coast, Spanish guards stopped him. A mistake, a misunderstanding, outdated paperwork. By the time they let him go, the boat was a speck on the horizon. His paintings, his pardon, his last chance. All of it gone. Witnesses said he ran along the shore, barefoot, desperate, chasing a ship that was already a smudge on the horizon. He never caught it. A few days later, Caravaggio was dead. 38 years old. No doctor present, no grave marked. Malaria, fever, lead poisoning from his own paints. Or perhaps, finally, the past catching up. 4 centuries later, nobody knows. The man who taught light how to feel died in the dark. Caravaggio died believing his story was over. It wasn't. Rembrandt took his darkness and made it psychology. Vermeer took his silence and made it intimacy. Velázquez took his gaze and made it power. 4 centuries of painters, photographers, filmmakers, anyone who ever used a single beam to reveal the truth, worked in his shadow. But he didn't just change how we paint, he changed how we feel. Look at that light one last time, that single beam cutting through nothingness. It doesn't just show a hand, it shows the moment before everything changes. A murder destroyed the man, a masterpiece made him immortal. Some artists teach us how to paint. Caravaggio taught us how to see. He was not the only one. ArtChronica is full of stories like this, brilliant, impossible, and true. Subscribe, and if this light stayed with you, like the video. Until the next light cuts through the dark.